Tonight, a scathing new report from the Inspector General's office is raising concerns over how the mayor's office is choosing to spend tax dollars. The investigation finds hundreds of purchases missing prior approval. Much of it spent on food, flowers, and luxury stadium suites.
The report released at the same time the IG is suing City Hall over access to financial documents within the mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement.
Bigger picture question, because I'm kind of confused of what's happening here, because you blocked Isabel Cumming from access to information.
Brian, I got to jump in. We didn't block her from information.
Well, she's subpoenaed for information, and you haven't given her the information.
Right, that portion, which is illegal.
We are back talking about Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott. We talked about the Inspector General report. Nearly $1 million of taxpayer money being spent on food, flowers, and stadium suites. Then we talked about the press conference video where he blamed his staff, called it a fraction of the budget, and went to no comment when $4,000 was spent on a farewell party for a guy who never left.
If it's not illegal, then it's appropriate.
Do you think that's okay for tax dollars to be spent on it?
I think it's okay for us to just run what I said earlier. My response is what I gave you earlier.
Is Marvin's party okay?
No comment on his aide's party, especially since James is still earning a $190,000 salary annually.
So the scrutiny has been mounting, residents have been talking, and the city council is mostly silent, and the Inspector General is in court. And instead of laying low, Brandon Scott went on a morning show and doubled down on everything. Every single position. No apology, no accountability, more deflection, more we're doing it the right way. I'm gonna show you a few clips from this interview that he had, and we'll see exactly what doubling down looks like when the receipts are already on the table and he's already in a lot of trouble. Let's get into it. Because the host asked him directly about blocking the Attorney General, you see what he's going to say and what he admitted, and this is going to be the clearest picture yet of exactly what is going on here.
I did want to ask you about an IG question, and I know there's litigation. I know you can't answer it, but it's a bigger picture question, because I'm kind of confused of what's happening here, because you blocked Isabel Cumming from access to information. I know it's going to court, but you got state lawmakers.
Jump in already, Brian.
Right.
I got to jump in. We didn't block her from information.
Well, she's subpoenaed for information, and you haven't given her the information.
Right, that portion, which is illegal. But yes, she can get information, just not stuff that is protected. Just want to be clear.
Even though
that.
she's subpoenaed for it, and it won't be handed over to her.
So his explanation, she can get the information, just not stuff that's protected. Protected from who? She is the Inspector General. Her entire job, the job the city created and the city pays for, is to investigate exactly this kind of spending. The documents she's asking for are financial records from MONSE, his Office of Neighborhood Safety, the office that he built, the office that he brags about constantly, the office he spent $890,000 running in part with the taxpayers of Baltimore. But the host didn't really let it slide. Right there on this friendly morning show, the host said it plain. She subpoenaed for information and you haven't given her the information. And the mayor really didn't have no answer. He pivoted to it has to be done in accordance with the law. That's the move. Every time the receipts come out, he hides behind process. People skip protocol. It has to follow the law. We have to do it the right way. But the IG is the right way. That's what she's there for. And he's in court right now fighting to make sure she can't do her job. That's blocking. That's the whole definition of blocking. She had to issue a subpoena. If you guys know what a subpoena is, it's a legal demand for documents. And his office said, nah, son, we're not doing that. But real quick, if you're interested in this type of content and you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button, like, share, even do that hype thing that I still haven't figured out what that means, but hype the video if you want this video to spread to bigger and bigger audiences. Thank you very much. And let's continue. So in this clip, he's going to be asked about Senate Bill 9, a bipartisan legislation to restore IG access. And what he said revealed everything.
Let me ask you, Mr. Mayor, because there's legislation right now that's been introduced bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans. It's called Senate Bill 991. Now, what this would do is not just for Isabel Cumming, Inspector General of Baltimore City, but there's 4 Inspector Generals in our state. It would allow them to be removed from the Maryland Public Information Act thing that is kind of blocking their access and allow them to do what they were doing prior to this type of question that was raised by the Attorney General. And I just want to know kind of where you stand on that, because it's not just for Baltimore City, it's across the board.
I want to be very clear. You could not get that information, right? Some of that information we're talking about, they still couldn't get that before. And what I will say is that it's really not up for me to determine that, C4.
Okay.
But it's really up to the state and the lawyers, right? Because what what I've been saying to you and Brian still reigns true, right? What you have to understand that if this information that is protected gets out, right, it puts the jurisdictions at risk and puts them at liability, at high risk of liability. And that's the part that we cannot ignore.
It puts the jurisdiction at liability. Let me translate that for you. He's saying that the Inspector General, the city's own independent watchdog, cannot be trusted with financial records because if those records got out, it would create a legal risk for the city. The watchdog is the risk, not the $890,000 in unapproved spending, not the $52,000 at the stadium, not the farewell party for a guy who never left. The person trying to investigate all of this, she's the liability. And then he says, it's not up to him. It's up to the state and the lawyers. But here's the receipt. His own office asked Senator Antonio Hayes to request an Attorney General opinion, specifically to slow down the IG's access to those documents. This mayor is not a passive bystander waiting for the state to decide. He is actively working to shape what the state decides. In Senate Bill 9, Democrats and Republicans introduced this bill together, bipartisan, which is unheard of nowadays. That's not really following the law. That's using the law as a shield while you fight to make sure the law never changes. But when you deal with these types of people, you have to keep the pressure on because this is exactly how accountability dies. Not with a bang, but with the process. This is where he starts to defend MONSE. And this is a part where the receipts get really personal.
People continue to come after MONSE because they don't like or respect the work that they do. And you know me, I always say, and I will continue to say, I don't care who you are. If you do something wrong, you'll be held accountable, right? We just saw that this week when the Essex State's Attorney indicted 3 police officers, and you saw a release from both of us. And I'm right there saying, yes, this is unacceptable.
Right.
We will hold them accountable through actions and actually that the police department initiated itself on itself. The same goes for MONSE and anybody, the community organizations they work with, or anybody. But this target that has been on their back, the defamatory claims that people have thrown around online, these attacks are nothing more, in my opinion, to undermine MONSE's work at a time where that work is helping us to achieve a goal, C4 and Brian, that people said that we couldn't and that people in the city have wanted for decades. I will not allow them to just be thrown around.
Talking about defamation claims, the Inspector General is not online. She's not a YouTuber. She's not a political opponent or a political commentator. She is the city's appointed independent watchdog, and she filed a lawsuit in the court of law to access these documents. I don't see how that's defamation. That is a subpoena. But you see what he just did. He framed a legitimate government oversight as an attack on the people doing the work. If you question MONSE, you don't respect the work. If you demand financial transparency, you're undermining the mission. That's a very convenient position for a mayor who's built a $24.7 million office and spending $890,000 on food and celebrations, and is now in court blocking the person whose entire job is to follow the money. He said, I don't care who you are, if you've done something wrong, you will be held accountable. He said that. In the same interview where he is fighting in court to make sure that the Inspector General cannot access the records that would tell us if something wrong was done. The timeline doesn't make any sense. But we have one more clip to discuss because I think the host ended it in a very funny way. And I'm not sure if the mayor actually understood what was going on.
Well, Mayor Brandon Scott, you know that we have had the Mayor's Office Neighborhood Safety Engagement leaders with us, Shantae Jackson and with the Stephanie Mavronis on our show to highlight.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not talking about YouTube.
I understand. I just want to make it clear.
Yeah.
I want to make it clear to highlight the different things they're doing, but that doesn't mean that there aren't questions that we can't raise when it appears to be a lack of transparency. Well, Mr. Mayor, you disarmed me to begin this interview by saying that you're going to be supporting, as you should be supporting the Poly girls in their game day. So I can't really be on you, but I will say that I hope those crabs that are coming, I guess it's from Australia, that we're waiting for those cocoa crab cakes to come in. They should be landing pretty soon. But I thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Always appreciate coming on the show.
But those crabs must be delicious. We've been waiting for that crab cakes for 2 years now.
I don't know about you, but the fact that he even made a crab cake joke on his show and the mayor just laughed it off, I think, to be honest, I think that was a bit of a slight. But I don't know their relationship. Maybe they're cool. But when you think about it, this is an interview where he spent about 23 minutes, and I'll put the link to the interview in the comments below. If I forget, just remind me. This is an interview where the mayor defends himself, blocking subpoena documents, calling bipartisan legislation someone else's problem, and said the people who question MONSE are throwing around defamation claims. And the host ended it with a crab cake joke. That's where we are right now. The IG report dropped. He's getting pressed on camera and he's blaming his staff. He sat in a really friendly interview and admitted they're not going to hand over those documents. Bipartisan legislation exists right now to fix what he's blocking, and he says it's not really up to him. So this investigation is far from over. The lawsuit is still in court, and Senate Bill 9 is still in motion. So we'll continue to follow this and follow the money because every receipt is on the table. I don't see how he is going to be able to get out of this. This is a really, really big blow on his administration. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.